Jeff, where are you at? You look like you're on some street somewhere.
I'm in New York City.
Before the rides or after the rides? It looks like before me.
It looks like on a rainy night, isn't it?
All right. I'm waiting for.
Hello, Mary.
Jeff, I'm still not in here.
She can
They let me in. It says I'm waiting for the host.
Oh, there you are.
Why can't they hear?
Let me answer you.
Nancy's on her way.
I'm sorry, Mary.
Somebody's got to turn your speakers on.
Sorry for that.
If I think Jeff, I don't know if you have the TV on or not, but
The TVs are on, sir, but the volume's completely off. John's got to turn down his volume down. Okay.
I can't hear anything.
Yep. Remember, it won't because of the delay. Remember that last night?
Yeah, you're just gonna hear us talk and they're gonna come out, my volume's up high, you'll hear it. You'll hear it out of yours. Unless you have earphones?
Okay. I think we're all good here. Good morning, everyone.
No Nancy yet.
No, wait.
yeah, Nancy should be joining shortly.
Thank you very much.
Does someone want to tell Mary you can't hear her? Mary's, she's turned off. I can turn it on if she wants.
Yeah.
Won't let me. Mary, I didn't know if you knew you were muted.
I just unmuted.
Yeah, okay.
She has to stand. Look at her. She's like Miss Techno is.
And just so you know, John and Donna are here at the office.
Okay. There you go.
And we also have here off camera is Jim Razio and Brian Hart from Alan Myers.
Nice to meet you. We signed a lot of your checks for the, we appreciate you being in existence, so great.
I speak English if you want. Wasn't it?
You guys did
Yes.
good.
I'll be right back. I have to go get my papers, okay? Be right back.
Hey, Casey, Bill.
Yeah. Can you come here a second? I'm in the middle of something.
I'm in the middle of something.
Oh, I see what you say. They're having a hard time. Okay.
I was getting stoned out of Cedar Hills and Elk Hills for some
It
projects.
says here, it says Samsung display, it was all the way up.
Yeah.
Turn it down.
Well, not much to do but fix driveways and some other stuff. You need material to fix it. Sometimes you can't just move the bottom of the driveway back up to the top.
We're good to go.
Nancy.
Sometimes you can't just move the bottom of the driveway back up to the top.
Nancy's trying to get into the meeting, Joan.
Okay, it's here.
Okay.
We're getting a lot of feedback, so if you're not talking, can you just mute your mics?
I'm in. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Nancy.
I'll put myself on mute
I'm not
then.
hearing anybody.
We're still getting a lot of feedback. John, maybe it's your mic, and Mary. Getting a lot of-
Hey, Dave, how do I put it on mute? I
Should
don't
be
see it.
a button at the bottom left of your screen that says mute. Or you click on your picture. I don't know. You got it. You're muted.
Okay, Nancy, I just want to let you know that not on camera is, well, Jeff Eastburn is here, Jim Durazio, and Brian Hart.
Let me take myself off.
Anybody who is not currently speaking, you mute your microphone. We're getting feedback. So John, mute your mic. If there's TVs on, mute them. Or turn the TVs off. I don't think we need them.
Do we have anyone from the public joining?
No,
Okay.
but I tried to tell you before that we have Brian Hart from Allen Myers here. He supplies the asphalt for project.
Okay. All right, I think whatever you've done might be better.
Is that better now?
Yeah, I'm not hearing it anymore.
Okay. You ready to start?
Yes. Joan, is this a meeting you lead or do you want me to lead it?
Well, you can lead it, or Jeff has all these roads.
I have some notes that I wanted to go over for the new supervisors, just based on what we did in the past, so you might want to start with that.
Well, how about if we let Jeff lead it and he'll kick off with you, John?
Can you share the screen?
So Jeff, before we get started, John just wants to read, has some comments for you before we start showing the pictures, okay? Just to put some context around what's going on.
That's your YouTube screen now. Did I pick the wrong one?
Yes.
Jeff, do you want to lead the meeting or would you rather Joan or I?
Just a minute, Nancy, we're trying to get him set up.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, no problem.
Did I pick that one? Well, this is YouTube too.
Well, it's because it's your computer.
Okay, let me try. After John gives his information, what we want to do is look at each road and Jeff has a quick slideshow.
Sounds good. You two might have to separate.
So all of you guys, so here's the problem. All of you guys are in the same room on the same meeting. Right? So we need to have all of your mics shut off. If Jeff's talking, I think what's happening is we have all of this crosstalk. So the TVs should be off, the mics should be off. It's just the people on their computers should be talking.
Okay,
Causing confusion. It's very simple.
until you're ready to talk.
So Jeff, unmute your mic and you can start the meeting.
Jeff, you're still muted. You need to unmute your mic. Bottom left. There you go. All right, I'll mute back.
Okay. Sorry about that. Over the past year, we have the staff has done an observation of the roads. This year, we had driven Auburn Road, Churchill Road, Elbow Lane, Gypsy Hill Road, Laurel Bridge Road, parts of Parsons Road. Now, if the board would like, I can take this in alphabetical order. Normally, what we've done in the past is I show the pictures because I walk all of the roads. So I show the pictures as I walk along. So I can go as fast or as slow as you want me to.
Before you do that, I think John wanted to say a few words about the process.
And if you'd like to.
Right. So John wanted to say a few words about the process before we get started on actually going through the roads.
All right.
Thank you.
Unmute here. Unmute. All right, now can anybody hear me?
Yes.
I'm unmuted.
Okay, very good.
Okay, this is some notes I made about the road program, and a good bit of this information is historical in character, and it's really directed toward the new supervisors, Mary and David, because we've all been through this thing for a few years. Infrastructure maintenance is a core function of Franklin Township, as it is with other townships in Chester County. The residents pay high taxes rightfully to expect good performance. Although the road driving surfaces are the main component of infrastructure, winter road maintenance, stormwater control, cross pipes and light boxes, municipal office facility, the park facility, and the general cleanliness of roadsides and neighborhoods are also components. To understand the roadway characteristics related to maintenance, there are some key elements that need to be understood before you get into the details. You really have to think of the roadways, the road network, as kind of a single element for this process. So there's another point I'm just going to make before I start into this part of it, is that this is an important point. Any single roadway is in continuous state of degradation that begins the same day you finish rehabilitating it, because weather and traffic immediately start to apply to it. So since 2012, our objective has been to improve the quality of the roadway network at a rate that is faster than they are degrading. That's an important point, meaning that as a whole, we're fixing them faster than they're degrading. Over time, the overall quality will improve to a point where the cost to maintain the roads at that level will be significantly less. I would expect we might be able to get down to 3/4 or 2/3 of what we're spending right now if we can bring that level up. And currently, we're in an accelerated rate of improvement. Progress has been steady, but slower than hoped for based on the capital available on an annual basis. The quality has been improving incrementally every year. So the next point is, if you maintain the roads with a rate of improvement that's equal to the rate of degradation, then the overall quality will remain in its current condition. No improvement will occur. Of course, if you maintain the rate of improvement less than the degradation, the overall quality will continue to decline. That's the condition that was inherited here in 2012. Knowledgeable people will tell you that the quality of the roadway network will degrade much faster than you can advance it. So let's be careful you don't go backwards. So why did that happen before we got in here? Taxes were much higher and a significant amounts of capital were applied. Simple answer is that the conditions Root causes of roadway failure were not being addressed. Stormwater management, base conditions, roadhead hardening, cross pipes were not addressed. The typical method was to mill and overlay a new wear surface, which is approximately 1.5 inches of 9mm asphalt. By not addressing the root causes of the failures, these rehabilitated roads failed prematurely. And just a few more words and I'll stop. Another factor was the characteristic of the contractors we engaged. These were large PennDOT approved road maintenance firms. They looked at Franklin Township work as more or less fill-in work between larger contracts. We had little leverage with them. The actual paving they performed was really of good quality, but none of the root causes of premature failure were addressed. For instance, during a milling operation, if base deficiencies were observed, they would typically just pave over it. Franklin Township had hired some inspectors to observe the work, and they should have been able to stop production if conditions warrant. But these inspectors are ineffective and in fact intimidated by the contractors. Additionally, the contractors would not perform finished work that made the job a complete high quality job, meaning driveway matching, fixing mailboxes, and all the little things that make the job a finished job. They left the township when the paving was complete and refused to come back and complete the minor work. Franklin Township did not have any leverage to compel this compliance. The township even could not refuse to use the same contractor on subsequent contracts if he was a low bidder. So that's kind of just an introduction of some key things you need to keep in mind as we get into this. So I've got a few other notes that we can get into later about yard works and my evaluation, and also the 10-year road program that was performed by McCormick Taylor back in 2007. So
Thanks, John.
we've
And
got
this
enough
might,
preliminary information out there.
all right, great. Thank you. So I'm looking at the 10-year road maintenance planning program that you sent this morning, and I appreciate that because it's a interesting document. So this was a document from 2007, and one of the questions that I have is we had a nice list of all the roads and all the projected completed dates up through, well, it was a 10-year, so 2017. What percentage of that road plan was executed by 2017? Is there a number? Do we have an idea of how much we actually executed through this plan? Joan, you're on mute.
There is a map that would get updated and show the roads that were done in certain years, and we can dig that out. I don't know if it was updated for last year. I'd have to look at it, but I know it does have a lot of the information in it.
Well, Jeff has given me a spreadsheet in the past, and you sent me a list of when every road's been updated.
Yes, there is a sheet also, which you should have.
Well, is it 25% of this plan, 50% of this plan, 75% of this plan?
Dave, you can't always follow that plan because they laid out roads that they thought would, last a certain amount of time and be done in a specific year. But we could have a road that may have been scheduled 2 years out and it blew up, early, and we had to change things around. So what we do have, and you were given a sheet that the road program was created for 2007 to the present of all the roads that were done. But again, you can't follow that plan totally because you don't know what's going to happen to a road.
Yeah, I think eventually things just didn't come apart in the order that McCormick Taylor put in there. And over time, they just didn't follow it. I mean, by the time I got on the board here, we weren't even using it. It was just kind of a reference document. And we were using our own evaluations to select roads.
So I guess that's the other question that I have, and take it in the vein it's meant, is the understanding is, we, the five of us, drive around and we looked at these roads, and I'm not a road engineer. I'm not taking core samples. I'm just kind of looking at the road saying, well, yeah, this one looks like it's in worse shape than that one. Are we the right people to drive around and just look at roads, or should we have a road engineer, right, that says, here's the priority? Like, this is, Elbow Lane absolutely needs to get done this year, because I know Mary came up with a nice priority and I don't disagree with it, but I don't know if I have the expertise to disagree with it, right?
Dave, I think that's a great point and something Joan and I have been talking about. So I think two things need to happen. One, Joan's gonna, at the next board meeting, propose that we engage a company that goes over all your roads and tells you what the status is of them and what needs to be fixed when. The other thing I would like to have on the next board agenda is to have our road engineer, which is a consultant, propose to have an assessment of the quality of the road work that's been done over the past, 5 years. And, let us know, are we using the latest materials? What can we expect in terms of road quality length? Any advice he can give us that tells us whether there are best practices we can adopt, whether we're heading in the right direction, and how long we can expect each road to last, because that's something that no one really knows at the moment. And I think it's really important before we keep spending money is what is the lifespan of each road? What has it been and what should it be?
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Nancy, wait a second. Dave asked some questions and then am I messing this up?
Now I can't hear you, Donna.
No. Okay, so Dave asked some questions that I can't, it's not working. What do you want me to do?
There's a microphone on that needs to be
Yeah,
turned
so
off.
Dave asked some questions that Joan never really had a chance to answer, and Dave, you had asked, you made a very good point, are we really qualified to be looking at roads? And I don't want to lose the point that we have Jim and Jeff that look at the roads constantly and are constantly looking to see what our lives look like, and also do the millings and the corn samples. John, so
Too much feedback.
We can't hear you, Donna.
You're on mute.
There's a mic on somewhere. There's a live mic somewhere that's
Okay.
messed up.
I don't know. This is horrible. All right. So I just want to say, we have Jim and Jeff. They look at the roads all the time. They do the coring to find out that what the longevity of the roads are. So I don't want you to think we're doing this blind. I also think that, we have to really consider, do we want to go back to another road evaluation depending on what it actually is? Because the last one we didn't really help us. It didn't predict what the roads were how long they were going to last, which ones would blow up first.
Yeah.
So I don't want us to take the attitude that we just there's something better out there that we're missing.
Let's
Because
vote on it at a board
there may
meeting.
not
We
be.
don't have to discuss it today. But to Dave's point, let Dave get his question answered.
I guess my question, and we don't have to figure it out today, but to John's point, this was a document that was, at least according to him, was ignored by the previous administration, and then it was of no use by the time he came in. So maybe the document, it wasn't that the road engineering analysis was the problem, it was execution of that road engineering evaluation. Does that make sense? Right, so we got this information and then.
That could be. But I think really what happens, trying to project something like that out over 10 years, based on what I've seen in the time here, is really a stretch, because
10 years is a long time, but maybe we do a 5-year plan. We do a 5-year plan every 5 years or something.
Exactly. Let's not throw out the baby with the bathwater. Let's see if we can, well, as I said, maybe it's not a topic for today, but I think it's important for us every once in a while to really just look around and say, what are we doing? How's it going? And what do people who are objective and not involved in our township at all, what do they think?
I just want to update you on something that both Nancy and Dave talked about. Nancy, remember when we looked at that magazine, I showed you the magazine with the robotics in it, and I put that information out in a Friday update to everyone. And I asked Jeff to start investigating that, and we watched the webinar, and we have talked to the representative from that company, and we are prepared to do a 5-mile inspection of the road, which they will evaluate. And so we're going to move forward with that, because when we did this road program evaluation in 2007, it was a very expensive project. It was in the $28,000 range. And by doing this new project, which we will bring up at a board meeting, we hope to have the sample done so that we can show you. If not, it will be, later.
Right.
But we'll definitely have the information. It's in the $7,000 range. So this is something that I think we can start to do the evaluation. Even if you wanted to update it every couple of years, that's not a terrible expense to incur.
Mhm.
That we can keep things up to date, because it's hard to follow something for 10 years.
Right, right.
You don't know what's going to happen. And at that point, we didn't know what was under these roads. It could,
I think that's great, Joan. And I think it does go hand in hand with, I think that's a terrific half of the story. I think the other half, and again, we don't have to discuss it today, is to just get an assessment of how our roads look. The new ones that were paved, the ones that were paved a while ago, just whatever.
Well, Nancy, just so you know too, in this 5 miles, we're going to do some new roads and some roads that we think need work, so that we can get a true assessment of everything.
Will they look at the materials we've used and the quality of the work?
Well, we have Brian Hart here who supplies the materials, and I'm sure he would be able to explain anything, and answer any questions.
Okay. We didn't have to discuss it today, but to me, it's important to do an objective analysis of the paving that's been done over the past 5 years. It's not to upset anybody. I would do it for anything at work. It's just step back and see how we're doing. I don't think it's going to be very expensive. I think I asked you 3 weeks ago to get a quote from someone. And so if you could get that quote, then we can talk about it at the board meeting. So just put it on the board agenda. We don't have to discuss it anymore. Let's move on.
Okay, just one question so I'm clear, Nancy. You want that in addition to this road box?
Yes, it's a separate topic. I think we
Okay.
talked about someone, I don't know if I should share it publicly, but that's what we pay the guy for. And so if you could just do that, that'd be terrific.
Okay.
I don't know if the rest of the board members are aware. I think Mary had just copied the reference from the Franklin Township News magazine about this robotics company. It's a pretty interesting low-cost evaluation tool where for about $7,000 they will drive the entire all of the roads in Franklin Township. They get evaluated, and the roads get evaluated through artificial intelligence. And then once it's up in their system every year, we don't need to do it every year, but every year that we do it, the data compounds itself so we can watch rate of decay of the roads, and really does a nice job of sort of what Nancy was talking about, which is objectively looking at roadways. Now, it's my nature is to pitch, and I don't mean to be pitching their technology, but I think it would be interesting to see what they have to say when they come in, if this is something that we want to do. It's not every year, not every other year, but it'll be interesting. Rather than pay $28,000, it might be interesting to do something that's a lot cheaper.
I think that's a great idea. And Mary, I appreciate the research you've been doing. If you look at our budget, road work is the largest line item in our budget, I think. I think it's worth spending a couple $1,000s here and there to make sure we're doing our best by it.
And the only comment I want is that when we look at these different options, that we're able to see how predictive they are. So just because it's the newest thing off the shelf doesn't necessarily mean it's the best thing out there. So it's, we need to hear what the technology is, and then I want to get some feedback on who's used it and how it's worked for them. So there is a little bit of due diligence we're going to need to do. But in general, I'm for the idea. I just want to make sure we pick the right way to do the evaluation.
Yeah, great point.
I have some specific comments I'd like to make about our current evaluation program. All right, where's that feedback coming from?
I don't know.
All right. Over the course of the year, both Jeff Eastburn and Jim DeRazio developed the basis for the annual program, and their report and recommendations are before us here today. The report contains many photos of roadway conditions that indicate conditions that need improvement. Although these photos appear to be a visual snapshot in time, there's much more behind these individual observations. Jim and Jeff drive around the township during the course of their routine activities, and they note areas of interest and concern. They kind of look at things far differently as they drive around than we do. In many cases, they're observing conditions during the course of stormwater events. Stormwater flow and how it flows off the roads and drainage systems, how drainage systems perform are key elements in understanding road failures. Additionally, invasive techniques are employed when warranted. Core samples and roll tests. Roadworks has the expertise to apply these tests without delay when warranted. In summary, their report is a comprehensive in nature because of the sheer number of observations that support it. There's just another key factor that we always use in the evaluation, and that's related to the conditions that appear after winter and the impact of thaw-freeze conditions. For several years, the roads came out of winter without a significant damage. But in 2019 spring was a bit of an eye-opener as 6 locations indicated failures. Ways Run, Heather Hills, Auburn Road, Gypsy Hill, Laurel Bridge, and Hess Mill. And of course, in this spring, we had almost no winter, so there are no serious failures were revealed because the winter was less severe than in recent years. It's important to understand these failures may be pending to be revealed after a more severe winter. But the one point I want to make about Jeff and Jim's evaluation is that it's continuous over the course of the year. Certainly the photographs are a one-time shot, but they've been looking at this thing for a long time and finding these areas. The photographs they're taking are really kind of a summary of what they've seen. So David, I did look at the website for robotics, and that looked pretty interesting. But looking at their technique is their fundamental input to their program are visual observations made by a cell phone camera as they drive around the township. So they're essentially giving you a one-time look, a report based on a one-time look. I'm not opposed to doing it. I think certainly it's worth taking their free 5-mile evaluation to see it. But I just want to be careful that we understand the data that they're using to make the report. Many of these reports, and I'm sure you've seen them in the corporate world, look really polished and professional, but you need to look at what's behind the report to understand.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
It's appropriate that we engage them in this free 5-mile trial. See what it's about. I'm very confident in the program that we have right now using Jeff and Jim.
So I agree. I don't want to give up Jeff's observations throughout the year. I look at this because Jeff would be doing this observation. So again, we're going to talk about the robotics and all of their stuff at another meeting when they come and talk to us. But I would look at a tool like them or like another tool would be something that Jeff would use to help him do the evaluation, right? So it's not a replacement. We don't replace him. It's just an added tool to help him with his evaluations, whatever we decide to do. If we decide to
Mary
do
has something to say too after you're done, Dave.
Well, I think reading over all these township magazines, there's an awful lot of information in there about what kind of products we use on the road, like the environmental impact. Certain materials last longer than others. I think we need an evaluation on that also to make sure we're using the best product we can, and especially for the environment. I just think there's just a lot of information out there, and we can get it through PSATs.
Jim,
So that's something we need to look at. What,
You
John?
want to address what materials are allowed by PennDOT, because they specifically tell us, Mary, what we're allowed to use. So
Okay,
I'll let them talk about it. 'Cause they're
okay.
experts, But we are limited in what we can do.
Myers is here and he can speak to the materials and what PennDOT allows.
Okay.
Inspections.
Well, I can't.
I'm just saying we got inspections here from PennDOT. We have the specs here from PennDOT that just came out. They give you a certain parameter. Brian in their lab figures up the mix. So we have that document here with PennDOT's. You can see has PennDOT's sticker on. Yeah, like Brian just said, there's a limited amount of product that PennDOT will allow. So it's not like we just come up with our own mix program or anything like that. PennDOT sets it up, Myers mixes it to their specs. That's why we get the cert forms for the blacktop and, use their mix for where they need to put it.
And one important thing to remember too is the township has to have a meeting with the PennDOT representative. We go over the project once the roads have been picked by the Board of Supervisors. And at that point, we do go over the materials we are going to use with PennDOT. And we cannot proceed with the project until PennDOT signs off on it. And I am more than happy to copy in these spec sheets and send them to you after the meeting if you wish.
Thanks, Jeff.
I say there's not an unlimited amount of products that can be utilized that are approved by the state of Pennsylvania. So
That's right.
those guidelines, we have to pass certain tests in our lab before it can be identified that it's quality for Pennsylvania. So it's tested. We have parameters we have to hit. It's tested daily. We provide material certifications that we gave you what PennDOT requires. And that's what's down on your roads right now. So these are all state approved mixes. But again, they're only.
Yeah, I think what Mary's talking about is there's been some articles talking about new road surfaces and new techniques. And so when we have that conversation, we can talk about whether or not any of them are approved. But we understand that you're currently using only approved road surfaces. So thank you.
Yeah, we only ship or manufacture and ship what is required that you're asking us for. Like we ship the Pennsylvania state approved mixes. We're not shipping you Maryland approved mixes or Delaware approved mixes. We ship Pennsylvania approved mixes for the state to meet the requirements for your roadways.
And afterwards, Joan goes through a pretty intensive audit where they will ask for Jim's invoices, the cert slips, and the invoices. And if none of that matches, that's not good for us. So, we don't get the liquid fuel monies. But
Yeah,
that's.
I was gonna say, at the end of the day, in my opinion, it's a tighter spec than maybe what I'm hearing here today that you may or may not realize. It's a very tight box that we're allowed to provide what you ask. It's not an infinite amount of things. It's a small amount that meets the state requirements for your roadways.
Okay.
If it's okay with everyone, then we'll start talking about the roads.
Okay.
If it's okay with everyone, hopefully you can see my computer screen here. Joan asked that I start with Elbow Lane. Right now, at the start, I'll show you a map. Hopefully this is up on your screens, the map. You'll see a pink line where Elbow Lane starts at the Maryland Township line. And then it goes to the London Britton Township line.
We're not seeing it yet. So it looks like you need to maybe change what you're sharing.
So if I'm seeing just screen, so why isn't it go on? We're seeing what's up on the wall.
You have to share the monitor. If you're using the monitor, you'd have to share the monitor screen, not your laptop screen.
There seems to be a bit of a lag here. I did, kiddo. It's
Well, Jeff,
Yeah,
while you're working on that, has everybody driven Elbow Lane?
Yes.
Okay. Does anyone think it shouldn't be done?
That's at the top of my list, Elbow Lane.
It's at the top of mine too, and it sounds like the people who were upset about it now understand that we're not widening it, and the trees would have to come down. It sounds like that's no longer an issue.
So I have a question about.
Do we vote or not that we can prove anything here, but what do we just?
I think we got to, I just want to let the discussion run out. I'm sure everybody's got their own option list.
I apologize for it being so slow, but it's up on my screen. The computer or Zoom's just trying to catch up with.
And Jeff, sorry, I'm not suggesting we vote. I'm just saying I don't need to see the photos because I saw the road. And I'm just wondering if everyone's seen the road. And then there's probably no need to go through these photos. It might be a different road might be helpful that we maybe haven't all seen. I can't hear who's ever talking. Boy, I don't think we're ready for prime time with our Zoom meetings.
The problem is we're using the televisions.
Off, it's been off.
Right, so if we were going to use the meeting room, and we talked about this yesterday, if you're gonna use the meeting room, we have to use the mic in the meeting room and the camera in the meeting room because it causes this feedback.
Okay, Dave, we will practice with that.
Yeah.
And have it right for the next meeting.
It's a learning experience, right, Jen?
Yeah.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
So I have a question about the road, Elbow Lane. This is just my ignorance. I was driving through it. You know, there were trees all along the road, and parts of the road were resurfaced, and parts of the road were not. Why is our section require the trees to be removed? Is there another consideration that I didn't see?
Dave, are you saying that on the part that whatever the other township paved, there are trees that are just as close and?
It seemed that way, but I'm not like I said, I'm not a road engineer, so I don't want to speak out of turn.
Dave, the one reason that the roads were, or the trees were trimmed back is we needed the height for a dump truck which is loaded with asphalt to be able to go up in the air and feed the paver. And that's 30 feet when that's up in the air, okay? And then as far as the sides, we needed clearance for the milling machine and the paving machine because they extend beyond the edge of the road. For example, when we do a subdivision, we have to either remove or turn mailboxes. because you need that extra space. So that's one reason a lot of those were cut back for clearance.
So there would be additional trees removed? Or is that done?
I don't want you to have the impression that all the trees were removed. There were a select number that are being removed and some are being elevated. One of the things you have to consider too is if you have two trucks passing on that road, you can smack a mirror up against some of those trees. You have to think of the school buses. And then also there's farm equipment that goes up and down that road as well.
Well, I would say, Jeff, that's true of most of our roads. And so I wouldn't want to suggest that we cut down all the trees where people have to slow down. There's nothing wrong with slowing down. But now we haven't begun that road work yet, have we? The tree work?
Yeah, the tree work is in progress.
Well, we didn't approve that in a public meeting, and that was $11,000. I don't want to get off tangent, but I don't want to keep spending money that isn't publicly visible.
Okay, I mean, it's something that has to be done before the road project can
It
start.
could have been approved at this public meeting. You understand? This is a public
I
meeting.
guess maybe I'm confused. Did we approve these road projects? Right, and so have the road projects been approved? So if we have to, like, why would we start work before the road projects are approved? Right, you understand my question? Like, we haven't approved any of these road projects, why would we start projects? I'm just wondering why that decision was made.
There was a consensus,
Who made the
and
decision?
maybe this is, once again, email being a problem. But the consensus through the email that everybody looked at Elbow and was saying, yeah, that's a road that we wanted. So even though we didn't say fix Elbow, we knew it was coming. And it was a chance to get ahead of it, but we won't do that anymore.
Yeah, we cannot do that anymore. We cannot.
No.
Well, if you all say, yeah, that's a high priority, we can't make a decision outside of a board of supervisors meeting, right? No action can take place until this is why we made this meeting public, right?
I'm with you, I got
it.
I think, was it made at a supervisor's meeting, a Wednesday meeting?
No, it was a staff meeting. I was there. I agreed to it.
That's what I mean, a staff meeting. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
so
want
it's
those staff meetings to be made public until we can vote on whether to continue them or not. I am not comfortable with these decisions being made by two people.
Nancy, I talked to John and Donna at a staff meeting about trimming the trees one week. And then the next week I spoke to you and Mary about trimming the trees because I've received emails from everyone that showed that Elbow Lane was a very high priority. And it was something that you can't start paving roads until those trees are taken care of. So
What you
that's
told me, Joan, right, what you told me was to go look at the trees. We did not talk about any approvals. And Mary went and looked at them. I'm ashamed to say I did not, but there was not an approval at all. And please don't imply it was.
So I know we don't want to get off topic on this, but what we can do about the staff meetings, Nancy, until we actually have, can people hear me?
Yeah, you're
I can
good.
hear it.
Okay, so what I suggest we do until we actually have the Board of Supervisors meeting for this, to talk about staff meetings and how we want to act in future. The staff meetings should occur, but not there should be nothing approved at a staff meeting from a Board of Supervisors perspective. I mean, I plan to go to them, but I will go to listen. I will go to comment, but I will not go to approve any expenditures. And I think in that way.
I'm comfortable with that. I'm comfortable with that, Donna, until we discuss it as a board. That works for me. I don't know, Dave, Mary, John, if you guys have different opinions.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I mean, I think we do need to go in and definitely sign some checks if the bill is due, but we can't talk about, all we can do is chat about a project and then move it right to the Board of Supervisors. We can't say we'll spend any money. We just can't. We have to do it publicly. And if the staff, if we make the staff meetings public, well, there's another way we can vote. But I'd like all of our expenditures at the Board of Supervisors meeting, and therefore we could have public input.
Yeah, we can talk about whether it's all expenditures or some expenditures, but
Yeah,
we won't approve anything at a staff meeting.
right.
All right, so let's get back to the
I
road.
just have a question about that, please, so you can clarify something. Are you telling me that I can't conduct any township business then unless it's approved at a township meeting? Nothing?
No, I think we're saying that I, as a board of supervisor, can't go cut the trees, but you may have to pay a Comcast bill, or you may have to fix a broken water pipe. You're not asking for my approval anyways. You have to do it. That's
Right, so Jones,
that is the manager.
that's right, Donna. And Joan, the advice I would use is if it's an emergency, deal with it. And if it's budgeted, deal with it. But the trees were not budgeted, right? So that's an example of where we shouldn't have spent that money until we had public visibility and board approval.
And I think for clarification, I know we all want to move on and talk about roads, but for a clarification, the problematic part of the trees was it was in anticipation of a project approval, right? So that's where I would say, well, we didn't approve the project and we spent money to start a project. That's where I would say, okay, well, I understand that you were saying you assumed that we would get here. I understand that, but that's why that was problematic, right? Because it was part of a project that still needed approval.
I understand.
And Dave,
Joan, I got a few
earlier
comments
point-
about this issue. I think we have a serious policy conflict here with the staff meetings and how we run the township. And I'm not proposing to try to solve it today, but just alerting the board that we're going to need to discuss this in some significant detail and come up with a plan so that the township manager can manage the township. I think you got to be careful that you don't try to micromanage the day-to-day activities of the township here, or you're going to delay these projects. The road program is difficult to apply over the course of the season that we're able to pave. In many years, we've been up against weather and we're not able to complete the program. So we have to be careful we don't put impediments in the process that don't allow the workflow to move along at a reasonable pace. So if you have to do it in a board meeting every month and approve everything on a monthly basis, that's going to slow things down. I'm not proposing a solution right now. I'm just providing some discussion so we can think about it. When we get into a board meeting, we can develop a policy that'll actually work. That's all I have to say about it.
Okay, since this is a public meeting, can we discuss this $11,000 to be spent on trees? Seems like there's a consensus of all the roads we're looking at. Elbow Lane, we all agree needs to be fixed, and we'll bring that to the board and decide on it. But this is a public meeting. Can we go ahead with this tree work that needs to be done for this road that we all seem like we agree it needs to be done?
I'm happy to vote on it now.
Okay. Dave, how do you feel about that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, then I vote that we finish up the tree work, and then we'll discuss Elbow Lane at the Board of Supervisors meeting. But it sounds like that's the one road we all need to get, that needs to get done in the township.
Do you need a show of hands, Mary? Okay, so I'll second that. I'll second it, Mary.
All right, thank you, Donna.
And then a
Okay.
show of hands?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Great. Thanks, Mary. That was very pragmatic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so are we moving on to the next road? Jeff? Hello?
Gypsy Hill was a road that I received a lot of emails, that had concerns mentioned in email. So I think we can skip to that road there and talk about that if that's okay with everyone.
Okay.
It is, Joan. Just the one thing I want to start with on Gypsy Hill is we did the entire road in 2011. So we didn't even get 10 years out of it. And maybe there's a good reason for that, but that's concerning to me.
That road was paved by Incon, correct? And there were some issues when the paving went on. That's one time we had an inspector who spent more time walking around than he did inspecting, and he was intimidated by the foreman. And when Jim went out there, he saw some problems with the paving, and he told the inspector to stop the crew, and the inspector wouldn't do it. So Jim had to call McCormick Taylor, the engineering firm who the inspector worked for, and got the gentleman that handles our township to stop the paving, because he saw some issues about the quality of the paving and the pitch of the road, so the water would drain and everything. So that road was a problem.
In general, how long do we expect roads to last? I don't know, Mary, if you've read about, like, I don't know if there's any sort of standard number we can count on.
I don't know, John, you may know this better. I thought the average was supposed to be 10 years. Of course, you have to take into account the amount of traffic on that particular road and the winter. The winter can do a lot of damage, but I think that's what you shoot for, 10 years. Is that right, John?
10 years.
Okay, so
The length of the road that lasts varies depending on what it is. If you look at the neighborhood roads, in the neighborhoods, those things can go 30 years. I mean, because they get so little traffic. The only heavy stuff they get is trash trucks. But you get on something like Gypsy Hill Road, which is a thoroughfare road, unfortunately it is, or Hess Mill or Guernsey Road, those roads take a beating. The other thing that kind of beats up our roads is we have narrow roads. So people drive close to the edge of the road, and the edge of the road takes a beating all the time because everybody's driving right up against it. So how to predict how long they're going to last? I don't know. I don't have a good answer for you. But I know if we continue to apply the work we're doing since 2012, we're definitely incrementally bringing the quality of the roads up. I can see that every year. At some point, you're going to get an indication that you've reached a higher level. And I think one of the key indicators is what happens to the road system coming out of winter. But to measure the roads and how long they're going to last, I don't know how you do that. I have a lot of experience in statistical analysis in my professional career, and I've looked at using some of those techniques on this roadway work, but there just isn't enough data to make any reasonable decisions as to how long they're going to last. The data is just not out there to analyze statistically.
Okay.
So to answer your question, I don't really have an answer.
All right. It sounds like Gypsy Hill is due for a lot of reasons, including all the traffic it takes.
So does anyone have any questions regarding Gypsy Hill, or are you satisfied that that should be on our project, or should we move on to another road, or do you have questions?
So I guess I'm pretty well aware of Gypsy Hill. The road is a mess. The question that I have on these roads, and again, I don't want to pick on John, but he's been our road expert here for the day. You know, when you look at a road like Gypsy Hill, are there special considerations that we need to think about as we repair them? You know, Gypsy Hill it's a pretty well-traveled road. I travel it all the time, and it's got, you know, hills on it. It's a Gypsy Hill Road. You know, do we approach a road like this different than we would approach a road like Elbow Lane?
Did you hear the question, Joe? He wants to know if there's any special considerations you need to make.
So, like, we would.
Yeah, okay, well, go for it.
We would increase the quality of this road and save some money on another road.
If you look at a road like that where you have failures, once we mill that top off, we look at our sub base and our base coat. A lot of times we'll have to go back and do a base repair. Looking in those areas, the other main thing is a drainage, you know, how drainage there. So we'll address all them things as we go. When we did Churchill Road, once we started milling it, we found a water source underneath of it. So we had to deal with that. So we stopped our work, fixed that water. So there's different things in there. I think you'll see in my estimate that I put like 50 tons of 19 millimeter. And that's a base coat. So that was in there to fix any of those areas.
One of the important things to note too is after Jim mills the top off, he does do a roll test with his large dump truck. He'll fill that up with stone and see if there's any bad areas as well.
Correct.
I think the roll test is an important function that we developed in our processes here. And just for everybody who doesn't know what it's about, typically we use a triaxle dump truck, one of Jim's trucks, and we fill that with a load of gravel that's 25 tons. The truck weighs 76,000 pounds at that point. So the process is to drive that truck down the road that's in question very slowly with an observer watching the rear wheels. And when things move down, that's an indication that we have base failures. Sometimes we'll run a roll test on a road before we strip it. But we've also found that we've stripped the road and found some base problems, and we've had to run the roll test after we strip it on the base asphalt. So all those tests are available to Jim on an on-demand basis. He has the equipment available. He also has a coring machine. So if there's any question, anything deeper, we can always core a spot or a number of spots. So all that work occurs based on what they see in the field as they start working the road.
Now, as you work on these roads, and again, this is the first time I've gone through this process, so forgive the question, and you start to see these added issues. So let's just pick on just Gypsy Hill as an example. You start doing this core work, you start to seeing some issues. How does the decision-making process, obviously you have to fix the road, right? Once you rip the top off, you got to go and fix it. But the, you know, is there a point where you say, oh, you know, Gypsy Hill Road is a real mess? Do you come back to the board and say, you know, this, we've discovered a real significant problem. I suggest we do a X, Y, and Z above and beyond what we were expecting to do to make this road more robust than it has been in the past? Or do you typically just say, okay, well, we'll just bring it back up to the level that it was when it was originally made, right? Originally put in. So that,
Hey, Jim, are you going to answer that?
Yeah. Yeah, we get into those, that's the thing, having us do it, is we can stop the process. Give Jen and Jeff a call. Couple we've had Jeff around, take his pictures, evaluate, we come back there, and that goes from there. So everybody gets to know what's going on. I invite anybody out, problem that comes up, come out and see what we're doing and how we're going to fix it.
yeah, the intent isn't to stop the work. It's just, you know, hey, you know, this road is going to cost $100,000, but if you do this and spend another $50,000, we'll get a much better road and it'll be much more robust. Is that something that you do on the fly, or is it something that we discuss and say, okay, well, it's
normally my estimates will have a higher standard for the roads than what they have now. So that's figured in. It's the unknown or stripping a road off, you can't see underneath. Then we'll improve it even more. It's not, you know, anything could happen, but normally it's already within that estimate to bring that quality of road up. And if there's a spot, you know, then we have to deal with it.
Dave, to explain a little bit more, for example, on Churchill Road, when they took the down to the base, there was a spring, as Jim had mentioned, in the road. And Jim came back and said, you know, there's water running, we have to deal with it. So that was just a matter of digging out an area, and they put in geotech and stone and everything to create a drain there before they went over it with blacktop. So that was covered more or less in the estimate. If we ever reach the point that when Jim took off the top and he said, listen, this entire base is bad, we didn't anticipate this, you've got to do a base, you know, and then do an overlay for the entire road, that's something we'd have to come back and talk about, because that's not covered in his estimate, something that drastic.
Yeah. Joan, there is another process, and we haven't used it here. It's called full depth reclamation, FDR. Essentially, in that process, you grind the entire road up down to the dirt, so that the base, the base asphalt layer and the top all get ground up into one pile. And then they compact that as the base. And I assume you add another layer of base asphalt, which is probably 4.5 inches, and then another inch and a half of wear coat. That would give you a road that probably lasts a long time, but you'd have to make a decision very early in the process to use that. I don't think we've ever used full depth percolation as long as I've been here in the township.
So, I mean, how would you make that? Not, again, I'm not suggesting we do anything. I'm just saying, you know, how would you make that assessment? So maybe Gypsy Hill Road is a road that could benefit from that technique. When would you make that assessment?
If you look at like Churchill Road, when we redid that in front of Windermere, that road was sinking, it was breaking off. We did a what we call a mill in place and put the blacktop back down, graded it, let it sit. Had a good warm summer that year. So it almost was blacktop again, but that's where we found the water, and that's where we had all the sinkholes and we had the pockets. So a lot of that will come up, whether it's the core sample we do, like we did a pothole or something like that, something we've already been into, and we evaluate the roads that way. Just doing cross plates will tell you a lot, and I give you that profile of that road as you're putting that cross plate in. So that with those procedures that we've done, that's how we decide what we can do or not, or what we should do.
Does anyone have a choice for the next road to discuss?
Well, I know you have Laurel Bridge next. Laurel Bridge, the part of the road that was dangerous was repaired by Jim and team, and it's just much, much better. I drove Laurel Bridge and I didn't see that as being a road that would be at the top of the list. It's not heavily traveled at all. And I was a little bit surprised to see that. When I've looked at the photos, you know, you can go on every road and look at cracks and alligators and stuff, but that one would not be my third. If these are in priority, that would not, I'm looking at the available funds for projects.
I don't think these are priority.
Well, sorry,
These aren't priority.
sorry, Donna. I'm looking at the list that says potential projects, and it says Elbow Lane, then Gypsy Hill, then Laurel Bridge. So I assume maybe that was in priority. It's a different list than the one that.
Yeah.
Nancy, they were put that way by me, and just because I heard from about Elbow Lane and Gypsy Hill from all of you, so I put that at the top, and then the rest were just listed.
Okay. Yeah, that one didn't jump out at me as being a this year project, maybe a next year, but that's just my opinion.
But there is a swale issue on Laurel Bridge that needs to be a water issue.
I guess I didn't see it, and maybe it's because I had just been on Walker Road and that had a lot of gravel and everything on the road, so I wasn't seeing anything like that, but I'm happy to look again and understand what the problem is.
Well,
There is no
I think
water
it's an
in that
issue in the
road.
winter with ice. That's where the problem comes in.
Okay, is that down, well, okay, maybe I'll have Jeff show me where that is.
Yeah, and do you guys want to talk to that? That's at the $5,800 fix. Jeff or Jim want to talk to that?
My only comment on that one is the paving might have a lower priority, but if you're going to do anything on Laurel Bridge Road, I think I'd do the drainage work. I'm interested in some comments from Jeff and Jim on that.
Well, that makes sense. I just don't see it, but yeah, I would agree. If it's icing up in the winter, then that is a concern for sure.
One of the things that Jim and I looked at was the driveway at 167 Laurel Bridge Road. What happens in the wintertime, if it rains or gets cold at night, it hits that driveway and then it fans out across the road. One of the ways that Jim and I talked about resolving that would be to, Jim can correct me, I think it was going back about 20 feet into that driveway and then doing making an asphalt swale so the water has an easier time to get down the road. And that price also included some ditching along the edge of the road as well, just to pick up the debris that's fallen over the winter, from the sticks to the leaves to little bits of stone.
Okay, what was that price, Jeff? I'm trying to figure out where that is.
$5,885.
Okay. Well, that sounds like I would definitely support that. I don't know how other people feel.
Sounds like a safety issue to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a good decision because really what really tears the roads up are stormwater issues. It addresses that, it delays the road work itself, but if we correct the stormwater issues, then I think we mitigate some further damage. So that was my logic there.
Right. And one of the things that also helps with too is the nights we get the freezing at night, and it eliminates one of those spots where Jim needs to go out and apply salt because the way the rainwater had fanned across the road.
It sounds like we're all in agreement that this is a road that needs our attention for safety reasons, for the ice and all. So I would say we bring that one up at the Board of Supervisors meeting.
Agreed.
I
The
agree.
patching, and maybe not the full road yet, but the patching for sure. Or the
Yeah.
stormwater issues, yeah.
Now I think it gets hard. I don't know which one's the
Yeah.
next one
I
to
know.
talk about, whether it's Churchill, Parsons, Auburn.
You know, I thought about Parsons gets a lot more traffic. So to me, it struck me as maybe being more important. I don't know. It's hard to say.
You guys, Jeff and Jim, do you have a favorite? I'm favorite in the sense of needs the most work, Churchill, Parsons, or Auburn?
For what it's worth, I put Parsons at the bottom of my list. I went over the roads a couple of times and I thought, not that it doesn't need work, but as Nancy said, you always can see cracks, but I didn't think it was as bad as maybe some of the others. But it is, I agree with you, Donna. Now we're getting to a toss-up, like which one of these should we do this year and put off to next year?
Yeah, Churchill was my favorite, but I don't know if I looked at it the right way.
Yeah.
I mean, Churchill, my favorite in the sense that I thought that would be one that we want to look at, or Auburn.
Okay.
I think that makes sense. I actually didn't think Parsons, I wouldn't have said Parsons is a bad road until I saw the list. I mean, it's not a great road, but it didn't come out to me the way Elbow did. And,
That's the way I felt, Nancy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe then we talk about it, of course, but maybe we wait till Jeff is able to meet with robotics and get their view and put all the information together.
That's a really good idea, because we have enough work now. I mean, come June, the Board of Supervisors meeting, there's 2 roads there that are pretty significant. As well
And
as
the work on Laurel Bridge. There's 3 right there that
Yeah,
we all think need
I like
attention.
that idea, Mary.
We have 5 miles of free road analysis. We might as well stick these last 3 roads on that road analysis. Just
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Anyway,
Okay,
What are we agreeing to? Because I think we need to finish the discussion.
we were just saying that we have these 3 roads, and we can't, they're all about the same level of priority. And since Jeff was going to go drive around with his new road analysis tool, maybe that analysis tool would help us delineate which ones should go first, second, and third. We didn't really make a decision to do anything.
So I would prefer to give Jim a chance to talk about which ones, how he thinks about Churchill, Parsons, and Auburn.
And not that we make a decision, but we at least have that input.
We can't hear you, Donna.
I would like to take the opportunity, because Jim is here, to have him talk about Churchill, Parsons, and Auburn, and at least have that input into the priority of those roads, and we can add that to any additional information we gather. But I hate to lose the opportunity having Jim talk to us about how his priorities for the roads.
I didn't think we were
Can I
just
give
moving
you
on.
the opportunity?
Looking at the paperwork and the course samples and stuff, Churchill and Auburn, I think both of them rank up there. I would probably say Auburn would probably be the best one, because that a little bit of winter that we did have, it seemed to get a little bit worse than Churchill. I think it gets probably more traffic on that one.
And Jim, is that just a patch? Might be looking at the wrong thing, but I'm looking at a patch, 8800.
It just, the way,
Oh, I see a different one, right, okay.
and look, like we were, like everybody was saying, it has heavier traffic on it than Churchill does.
Right, it sure does.
I was trying to see what all we had on here, but I can't find my sheet.
Yeah, Auburn is pretty heavily traveled, isn't it?
Broke that up into, oops. We broke that up into 3 sections.
Is this one that we could do the pictures, or is that?
We can, but it's just going to be a delay with getting them up because of Zoom. I'm more than happy to. It's,
Maybe what we can say is that I think to Mary's earlier point, and so we know the first 3 priorities. I mean, if people want to look at the drawings, Jim, I respect your opinion, and Auburn is a fairly heavily traveled road. And if you have the drawing or the photos, you can look at it. But maybe we just say that's the 4th priority, and then, you know, we don't necessarily commit to it yet, because I think it is important to do the road analysis, but that would be next on the list after the road analysis.
I agree with Jim for what it's worth. I think Auburn next,
Would be the next.
the way it's cracking up in a couple areas, we actually have grass growing up in the road.
And then would Churchill be the following one after that?
Right.
Yeah.
I'd like you to look at the estimate that Jim and Jeff revised. You should have it. It says Auburn Road, and it's got a green underneath the length of the road, and it's a lot of colors down the bottom. And we broke it down into the cost per foot of doing each of those projects, because on this estimate, we combined the projects, like the patches and everything, you know, so to show you when you have equipment there, if you can, it's better to do a bigger project instead of, you know, it makes that other project cheaper because you're only mobilizing the equipment once. So when you're looking at Auburn, if you could look at that estimate there, you'll see what I was talking about.
Well, at the
See a
moment,
number of 72,000.
sorry.
That's
So
what,
Joan, you're saying if Jim's going to bring all this equipment, a large milling machine, a paver, and a roller, that we're better off maybe doing more feet of that road because it would cost less per foot? Because a big part of the cost is getting all that equipment on site. Is that, I'm understanding you right?
Yes, because,
Okay.
you know, there are 2 Auburn Road projects, and
Okay.
one was doing 2 patches at $8,800 a piece, and the other was paving in a section of road. So if
Okay.
you combine everything, it does, I mean, you're spending more money, obviously, but it does make it cheaper per foot.
Okay.
So that's the $72,634.
Correct.
Right.
Seeing that.
So the 2 patches would be 17,384, but if we go ahead and do the rest of the paving, that's how we come up to the 72,000. Okay.
I wouldn't support patches. I think.
I know
patches
you don't
are-
like patches.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, they don't seem to work very well, and They're just another bump you drive over generally.
The $72,000 price starts at Auburn Road at North Bank Road and you're traveling west towards the Keene Farm to
Right.
2017 paving limit.
So I mean, not that you're here to make me happy, but I feel like we at least got a sense of priorities with Elbow first, Gypsy, the Swale and Laurel Bridge, Auburn, and then Churchill. Not that we've agreed to spend any money yet, but at least we have a sense of what our road experts think or the order in which we should address them. So that I feel good about today's meeting.
That's fair. Yeah, I agree, Donna. You know, I'm not sold on Churchill or Parsons, but I think the others I'm more sold on, and I'm more comfortable, you know, at the Board of Supervisors meeting saying, yes, I definitely agree to these.
Time is more than
I understand. We have a,
I'm always willing.
can folks mute their mics? So I'm hearing a lot of feedback. So I guess the question I had is, we have a budget, and the reason we do the prioritization is that we can't get necessarily all the work done in one year, right? So it's not saying we're not going to do Churchill. It's just Churchill is X on the list, and it would be okay to bring it to the next year. Is that how I'm reading this?
That's a great point, Dave. And you're reminding me, did we have anything left over from last year that we said we were going to do this year?
Not that I can think of, Nancy, but just so you know, Dave, we have had it happen that we've, you know, done our road projects and they've come in like under what we budgeted for or planned on, and we were able to do another smaller project at the end. And we've also had times that weather held us up and we only got to do maybe half of what we had planned on doing because it got late in the year and PennDOT won't let you pave after a certain time. So we have to be flexible.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I was clear that just because it's 5th on the list or 3rd on the list doesn't mean that we're not going to do it. It's just we might not have time to get to it. So we're just going to we're doing one at a time. Okay.
I agree. And I
Thanks.
think, you know, we did have an excess from snow removal, but I'm not ready to say, let's put all of that into roads this year. So, you know, to me, it's appropriate to just hold on to some of that money and see what else comes up this year.
I agree with you, Nancy, as the treasurer, because I have concerns about what our EIT income will be. I think real estate, we probably will be okay because a lot of that is paid by the mortgage companies. But EIT, if people haven't been working, it's not going to come in.
Right, great. Thanks, Joan.
Yeah, I have some general comments I want to make here. What the heck's? All right, I have some general comments. If you look at this set of roads that Jeff and Jim have identified, they're not on the list because they want to just put something on the list. They all have serious deficiencies, and that's why they're on the list. And I think you need to look at the total amount of money that you put into the road program on an annual basis. And typically, we have put somewhere around $500,000 into the road program every year. And that's where I think we need to be. You need to figure out which roads fit into that $500,000 budget and then put them in there. But to parse this thing down and look at a road and say, well, it doesn't look that bad, that's really hard to evaluate because all these roads that we're talking about have significant alligatoring cracks, essentially little chunks of roadway separated by cracks, and they're all up and down the road. There's really no way to predict when that stuff comes apart. So one looks worse than the other. I'm not so sure that's the case. And Donna and I did spend some time one Saturday here, May 2nd, we spent the best part of a Saturday morning looking at all these roads. So, and in Mary, I know you did some work also. So we're not doing it based on just the pictures. We had the pictures and we looked at the roadways and we did walk some of them. So, but from an overall strategy standpoint, you need to bring the overall quality of the roads up. $500,000 expenditure on a yearly basis is what we've been doing. That's where I recommend we go.
I don't think we are changing that, right? I don't think we were discussing reducing spending on the roads, right?
Well, Dave, I think what I'm saying is I'm not ready to commit 170,000 from the general fund. Now, John, I don't know where you normally get the 500,000, but it clearly, from I can see, we don't have a budget for 500,000. We've added the 170 and the 50 to get to 597,000, and I'm not comfortable spending that money.
Well, it looks to me what we're talking about right now, what we seem to all feel is important. If we do Elbow, Gypsy, and the, what's the other one? Laurel Bridge.
Yeah, part
We're
of
looking at
Laurel.
about, round numbers, around 350. So
Yeah.
that's a lot less than 597, but I don't know. We'll have to decide that at the meeting, the Board of Supervisors meeting. But, and you think we should?
I'll draw your attention back to the report that McCormick Taylor did back in 2007. The thing that stands out to me is something on page 6, which it's indicated the recommended expenditure on a yearly basis. And if you look at the amount of money they're recommending in the township spend, they were in the $700,000 to $600,000 a year range. So to spend $350,000 on our roads and we have more, we're making a mistake.
Well, let's just see what the assessment does, what it tells us.
We already have an assessment by probably the best assessment we're going to get. Now, I'm not opposed to trying some other assessments, but this robotics one is strictly visual.
Right.
And they're based it on a one-time visual observation by a camera.
Well, John, we don't have
other more invasive ways of interrogating a roadway. There's something called ground penetrating radar, GPR. And there are some firms that offer that. And we looked at that many, many years ago, and it turned out to be a really expensive evaluation. And the companies didn't think that it would apply to our roads very well. They were more aligned with long straight roads, Route 1 or some other major thoroughfare.
What I'm suggesting right now is we don't have to commit the 597,000. We may have things come up that we don't know about. As Joan says, we have issues potentially with the EIT and with taxes. We're not saying that we don't choose to spend it later. It's just right now, nothing looks like it's compelling on the lower part of the list.
I think they're compelling.
I know you made your point and I made my point, so we probably aren't going to agree, but that's fine.
They're compelling in the guys, trying to raise the overall quality of the roads.
Yeah, I mean,
that is by applying a reasonable amount to the roads every year, and that's what we've done. And we're improving the quality. It's definitely improving, but I don't think we've got an overwhelming force with that amount of money. So I'm not ready to back off on it.
Well, you're one of
how do we measure the how do we measure that we know the road quality is getting better? Like, what is the metric we use that shows that overall we're in front of the curve, that we're not redoing road work, that we're not, what is the metric we use to say that we are actually in front of the curve?
David, I think we're not getting reoccurring issues on roads we've worked on. Why? Because we made a fundamental decision back there probably about 2013 or 14, where we were pretty much just milling and overlaying up to that point the way the previous group did, and realized we were not getting the quality we want. So we slowed down the miles per year and put more quality in there. We addressed the root causes of failures. And the worry there was that if we go slower in a number of miles per year, but we're still putting the money into it, are things going to start blowing up on us after winter? That's one of the key indicators of how the roads come out of winter and what really comes apart. I think there are two indicators, that one, and the other is that we're not going back and fixing stuff that we've already done. I don't know of any other metric we can use to determine the performance. I wish there was. Like I said, I'm trained in statistical analysis. But there just isn't enough data to make any projections.
Well, but John, what you're predicting then is that we should be able to spend less each year because we're doing a better job each year.
That's right, but what you need is your key indicators, which are, do you have to go back and fix anything? Or what do they look like coming out of winter? Now, we didn't get that indicator coming out of winter this year because we had such a light freeze thaw cycle. But I think the work's still out there. Just looking at the list of roads that Jeff and Jim came up with, they're not on the list because they're good roads. These all have serious deficiencies and need repairs.
So John, one of the other questions that I have, and again, I think we should be spending money on roads. This is one of the things that this township, if there's one thing we have to do as a board, is fix the roads. And so that's our responsibility. But my question is on, you were talking about the road analysis from 2007. And one of the things you had mentioned was you don't want to trust this because things come up throughout the year that you don't foresee, right? And so you don't want to say, okay, let's commit all of our money up front because in 3 months, there could be a road that blows up that we don't anticipate. And so my concern would be if we are going to spend all of our available funds on these roads now, and then we get hit with a earned income tax hit, and we get hit with a recession, all of a sudden the road does blow up, right? We won't have any money. So we don't have any, if we don't have good predictors, we have bad analysis, and I'm using your words, we have bad previous analysis, and we have no good predictors. Why would we be reckless with the money that we have now, right?
I agree with you. I think there's such an uncertainty now on the economy with the Chinese virus and the riots right now. The economy's flat on its back. I don't know where we're going to end up with EITs. I think
another point that Dave and Mary don't know about is in 2015, Benjamin Run and Peter Christopher were done, and they were quite expensive. Joan can tell us how much money we spent, but they showed signs of failure to the point where we actually went back to LTL since they were our engineering firm, and they used some different approach that turned out not to work out very well, and we got money back from them. So those are sitting out there, the big nut that we'd have to crack if they start failing, and we have nowhere to look but ourselves to make sure we spend that money on them. So that's something that we need to keep an eye on. Those are now coming on to 5 years.
I acknowledge that, and I agree with it. That process that we had was not well executed by the contractor, and it's just another example of how you're not able to recover anything from these guys when they make mistakes. It's an unfortunate incident. We really don't know how long that road's going to last down there. We see some abnormalities. We got a little bit of money back from LTL, but you're right. If that thing comes apart, it's ours. I can tell you that the base down there is in pretty good shape because we put a lot of effort into repairing the base in that neighborhood because it was so poorly done. So probably the solution down there would be essentially a mill and overlay.
All right,
so there on top,
just another thing to keep track of, and to say maybe it doesn't make sense to spend everything so quickly.
I'm not seeing that thing coming apart right now. We got these dimples down there, but we're not seeing them manifesting into cracking or anything like that. It's just a big worry because they're there. But
can I just make a comment? I don't think we're
far off in terms of what we've agreed to.
Can't hear you.
Just step back a little bit. We've agreed to Elbow, we agreed to Gypsy, and we agreed to the swale at Laurel Bridge and Auburn. And not that we're going to spend it all at once, right? It's spent over time. We can continue to look at the budget. Joan does this every day. And if as we progress in the fall and into the before the winter, we have money, or we say, look, Churchill's a problem or another place is a problem, we have the ability to come back and talk about it. We do it at a board of supervisor meeting anyways, right? So we have our priority list. We're in a pretty good place, right?
I agree, Donna.
Mhm.
John, I mean, we're not saying we're not going to spend the money. We just said we're not going to spend it now. Right?
I agree. We got to be very careful because of the uncertainty of the EIT income. That's going to really blossom on all forms of government as this year goes on. You're not seeing much of it right now, and nobody's complaining, but it's gonna develop.
I want you to keep in mind also that we have the commitment for the Hess Mill Bridge. That is our portion. You know, the grant will cover some of it, but we are responsible for $75,000. Some of it we have spent already with engineering, but the biggest chunk of that is going to come out of our budget.
Yeah.
Is that in these numbers then? We have,
It's on this sheet here. I mean, so we should add 75,000. That's just to be safe, $75,000 to this list of roads expenses that we think we are going to incur.
So
okay. I think that's a good, we need to do that. We should look at it as a capital project. Yeah.
so now, Mary, that pushes us up to what, $400,000?
Yeah, a little more.
400,
Yeah.
okay.
Four and a quarter.
350.
70, it's 350 plus 70.
Yeah, because Joan, we're doing the full Auburn, not just the patch.
So far, we are at $420,000, if I can do math in my head, of road work. So that leaves us, if we're going to look at, John's statement about maintaining our spend, we're about $80,000 under that. And I would guess by the end of the year, with all kinds of things that can happen with a road, that's going to get spent. Yeah. That's my guess, right?
And I mean, if we really do have 500,000 a year, where does it come from? Because this year it was because of the snow removal excess. So I'm not really sure where we get 500,000 a year.
Well, definitely that capital amount has been dwindling over the years for a whole host of reasons. Generally, costs are going up. The one that's accelerating the most is the emergency service, fire and ambulance. That goes up about 6% a year. Although this year, the ambulance for West Grove for all the townships went up 23%. So that's definitely a volatile expense for us. And the cost of our consultants and the legal fees and all that stuff builds up. And, the way we manage the budget, we budget all those things first, and whatever is left over is the capital, our disposable funds, and that is definitely dwindling because.
So we may not be able to commit to 500,000 every year in road work unless you want to raise taxes.
I'm not going to raise taxes, but I don't want to divert capital funds to anything other than infrastructure. Well, I don't see any other expenses that are coming along that would require it. So.
Well, Joan, we all just mentioned some, and we don't know what's going to happen. So I don't even know that I think we should spend 500,000 a year. I think we should spend what we need to spend. And
I think that's a wrong approach. You need to put all the capital you can with all the risk factors built into it to bring these roads up.
And we've spent money poorly. So we have to make sure that
I don't think we've spent money poorly. I think we've really done a really decent job quality-wise all along the line here.
Well, except for Peter Christopher and except for Peter Christopher and the other one.
You can't afford to back off and let it back up on you because it'll go backwards faster than it goes forward. I can almost guarantee.
Well, we don't have to decide today. As Donna said, we don't have to make this a big argument. I think Donna's exactly right. We've set aside a significant amount of money. We don't need to commit anymore if we're not comfortable. We have a lot of unknowns this year. In my opinion, we just say, hey, this is the year that this is what we're spending. And maybe we spend another 80,000 in patching or whatever comes up that we don't know about yet.
We get to revisit it again as the year goes on, and we'll see if there's money left to do something else, or, we'll have that conversation at a board meeting. We have a priority. I do have a question for you, Joan. Liquid fuels, are we covered? We have roads for liquid fuels? Because that we want to spend.
We have $210,000 of liquid fuel money, and we always spend that first because.
And these roads qualify for that?
Yes, we have to Jeff and I will fill out an application to be able to use that money, but we'll use it for all of this, and then we will add in some of our capital fund to make up the total. And then PennDOT will approve the expenditure.
Joan, I have a question for you. Do you anticipate, and I know this is a guess on your part, do you anticipate liquid fuel funds going down next year based on everything we have lived through, people driving less? I know I'm getting rebates on my car insurance because my car sits in my driveway. So I'm thinking, will that have an impact on liquid fuel funds we'll get for next year?
I
do you
believe
think,
so,
Joan?
Mary, because it's
Okay.
based on the liquid fuel tax that you pay for gasoline.
Okay.
It could be another factor that would take some income away from us. And the state
Right.
of Pennsylvania is in serious financial shape. They're,
So I'm hearing we need to go forward very cautiously. Is that right?
I agree with that, Mary.
Okay. All right.
The
Okay.
state of Pennsylvania's got their own way of deficit spending, but they're really heading down the road to some serious trouble.
Okay, so I think we're done. Do we need anything else to cover?
No,
I
I think
would
we're
like
ready
to
for our
make-
meeting.
I would like, before we end the meeting, I wanted to make some comments about Yardworks and their performance. Just a few words, the transition to Yardworks for infrastructure maintenance with a competitively bid unit cost contract has been good for the township, providing an opportunity to develop all root causes and developing a plan for road rehabilitation. The overall cost and quality of their service has been beneficial to the township. Yardworks' contribution to Franklin Township has been enormous, and a full discussion of this really would require a separate meeting. So I don't want to get involved in a lot of details, but I want to make some points. And just a few examples of their performance. When unexpected problems develop in the field, Jim always stops work, develops a solution, presents it to the township for discussion and disposition. No field Band-Aids are ever applied. Strong, timely response to emergencies, weather, trees, traffic have provided great performance in that. Jim does not go anywhere in his truck without a chainsaw. Winter road maintenance provided by Yardworks in reality has been the best that Franklin Township has ever had. I don't think anybody would dispute that. Yardworks' expertise significantly displaces engineering costs for infrastructure maintenance. Prior to them coming in here, we spent a lot of money with our engineering firms. And we still occasionally have to because Jim can't do all that stuff. Just for instance, we had a big drainage issue on Peacedale Road from Natural Lands Trust down to the bottom of the hill. That required about 1,200 feet of 18-inch pipe and 5 or 6 inlets. That engineering had to be done by LTL. Jim couldn't do that. So we do need engineering, but for the most part, he displaces a lot of engineering that we would have to buy from LTL or McCormick Taylor. All right, that's all I got to say about that.
Thanks, John.
I am always willing to take any board members out if they want to look at the roads or answer any questions or try and provide any information that you need. I just look at these meetings as an exchange of ideas, and the board makes the final decision in the end.
I think it's a good idea, especially for the new supervisors, if you haven't had a chance to see roads under construction, to maybe when we know that it's something really interesting for you to see, that if you have the time, you take a look at it. It's because it's not just the top of the road, it's everything that's underneath of it too. So it'd be interesting for you to see some of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm done.
Good? Everyone
We're
satisfied?
good.
Yep.
All right.
Hey, everybody.
All right,
weekend,
thank you.
everybody.